Okay, I'm not sure. We're working through some technical difficulties right now, ladies and gentlemen, but give me 1 second. Hopefully we can get everything squared away. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works, but we're going to try to see if we can build it while we fly it, as they say. So if you guys would favor, while we're trying to work through the technical, subscribe to the show. Give me 1 second. Let's see if this works here. Okay, Hank. Okay. Are you guys
All
there?
right.
All right. We're working through some technical issues on my end. So while I try to work in the background to try to get that connected and get everything sorted out, I'm going to let you guys. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys get us started while I try to fix these technical gremlins that we got in the background.
Yeah, we got a couple gremlins here, but we'll get them looked after. Good evening, Hank. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. It's a hot day in Nashville.
Every day is a hot day in Nashville. It's probably America. I think it's still America's not.
Yeah, it may slow down a little bit. We need to catch our breath. We got a lot of things to talk about tonight, guys. I just thought I'd give you a smorgasbord of things and see what was the top topic for you. As you know, Chuck, it's wonderful to have a Canadian on who's not going through all of the angst we're dealing with down here. Our major issues are all being forecast as something that will take place after the election.
And that really,
But a lot of what are our continuing issues, simply because it's a dismal forecast. It may not be a thunderstorm, but it's certainly going to be a rain shower. And the issues are the future of the owner-operator model, which transcends carriers and models. The second one is the new safety fitness determination, which is the way we got started as an advocacy group. Would you believe it? 15 years ago. Well, they're back, and the fraud issue, which is still the hottest button around. It's still the one that doesn't have any interest, any solution. So I'm going to throw out those issues and also the one of double brokerage, all the collection agencies that are ruining the relationship between honest brokers and their shippers, and say that those are the four hot topics that we're trying to prepare for after the election. And I'm going to be obviously looking for kind of ad hoc committees to deal with each of those, because some of them are going to be taken to Congress, some of them are going to be an administrative ruling court change, and some of them are going to be before the NLRB. So of those four items, since I might end up recruiting you two guys to make a statement here and there on it, which ones are most concerned to you?
well, I think number is certainly wrong.
Chuck. We got a issue on your end with the audio, Chuck. Your audio is not coming all the way through. I'm not sure exactly why. Your signal seems to be strong, but your audio is not cooperating.
Okay, because when I my computer, I couldn't hear you guys. It was all mumbled.
You're coming through.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your audio's great, Hank. Your audio's great. Chuck's
okay.
Sporadic. Try it again, Chuck. Let's see if it might have worked itself out.
I think that the most important item here to deal with today is we need to talk about the fraud because it is so rampant.
I thought that's the one that you would choose. It's by far the most frustrating of the ones here. I'll give you just a little background, and we can go from there. You will recall that it's been well on a year ago when a number of associations made an overture to Congress to get Congress to wrap on FMCSA and figure out what they were going to do about fraud, because they really have eschewed fraud and said they didn't even have any responsibility doing it for years. Well, anyway, the notice went over to the Department of Transportation. They arranged a meeting for us from the Department of Transportation. They listened politely, made no comment, and said they take it under advisement. So then a year began to run, and people began to get antsy with the continued proliferation of it. Started being some different point of views of what we could get from the agency. Meanwhile, the agency still was not responding to victims, not responding when issues would be pointed out. They came out with the idea that they didn't even, which ultimately led to them going to Congress and saying, we don't think we have the authority or the manpower to do it. And moreover, if it's a criminal issue, it should be done by the Department of Justice.
I agree.
That's where the agency has left it. And, I agree, too, that under our system of government, if you're going to lock somebody up, he's got civil rights. He's got the right to a trial by jury. He's got the right to have the Justice Department managing it. But unfortunately, the FMCSA's position wasn't about we can do it. It was more of, we can't really work with them. And so it's been left at that point with FMCSA. The only thing that's really pending with them is their new carrier application, which is another PIP. They say that fraud is a major issue, and that if they're allowed to put in place a new application that is a fill-in-the-blank application, it'll somehow affect fraud. That's yet to be shown. But what we're left with is kind of a bifurcation of different trade associations' attitude. Some are saying, well, let's get in the Department of Commerce. Some people are saying, well, maybe if we just give them the authority to do civil penalties, they'll do it. That's in a piece of legislation sponsored by Eleanor Holmes Norton. And, I think I welcome your comments, guys, but I don't think if you leave it up to the FMCSA's discretion and the penalty is a civil penalty, that you're going to accomplish anything. To me, this fraud is so bad, the guys have to literally be incarcerated and chased.
100%.
I agree. I agree that we need something. We need something with some teeth behind it to really kind of help stomp this thing out, but as a as a really healthy deterrent to keep people from doing this. Because right now it just seems to be so damn easy to be able to pull it off for the scammers and the guys that's in the racket of doing it. That it's almost like child's play, and they'll they don't fear any kind of repercussion from any of their actions that's going on.
Well, yeah. Here's the part of the issue. I think if you took a poll of any honest man, he would say this is the number one on the hit parade to save our industry. But there are a lot of folks who have figured out, well, the government's not ever going to do it, so let's get third parties to do a better vetting. And those third parties that are doing the vetting are kind of competing for business, and some of the results are kind of untoward. For example, one of the groups will say, well, gee, to determine whether or not the guy's a fraud, you need to see if he's had roadside inspections, if he's been in business more than 9 months. So that's their winnowing tool. And I mean, the fact of the matter of that is, with 100,000 guys, a lot of them being owner operators with free, with good miles, the chance of them being inspected in the first 9 months is slim and none. They can't stay in business long enough to get through the spam blocks. So I mean, it's really no answer.
I had a broker tell me today that they weren't onboarding any new carriers until later on this year. So if you didn't already have an established relationship with them where you've already done some loads with them, but previously they're not setting up any carriers.
All of that is anti-competitive,
right?
But traditionally, if you want to get something that requires some funding, you need to bring the brokers along, because they've got a larger war kitty than the carriers, and traditionally they're just concerned about what it takes to avoid fraud. And yes. I think a lot of them are outsourced. I've been asked to speak at a couple of these things, and I've decided that the co-presenters are really not interested in the law. They're interested in how can. So going forward on that, it's a challenge, because I think it will literally take an all hands on deck kind of grassroots effort. We're not ever going to have the pack and the white envelopes and those kinds of things. But, it's going to take us getting 2 or 3 constituents in the key congressman's place and getting enough of their attention to explain to them how ultimately terrible. It'd be something that, we've talked about, how do we organize it? I think you guys understand. I'd love you being on a steering committee to help figure out how to make that work. But, as it is, we got to come up with a coalition of the willing that can basically take on bureaucracy, whose motto is, we be here long after you're gone.
Because the department they monitor fraud thing is ridiculous, because many people.
Yeah, Chuck, we got to. I think you're on your phone. I think Chuck's on his phone now. I think you may have his microphone, because I think the microphone on his phone is at the bottom. You may have to adjust how your phone is sitting, Chuck.
I'm going to try it again.
Your sound is perfect right now, but
you're perfect now.
You know what? don't look at my, maybe my phone is limited, so I'm going to just stay on my phone if you don't mind. And if you don't have a picture of me, Google it.
That's
Well,
okay.
go ahead and finish your point, Chuck, because your audio's coming in perfect now.
Is that the two agencies that you mentioned, the FMCSA and Department of Transportation, can't even do their own jobs right now. They can't even do the workload that they're outlined to do. How the heck are they going to take on something the size of fraud? This has got to start with the Justice Department. It just has
Well,
to.
the answer is this postmodern world bring in artificial intelligence. What they're saying is that they are going to be able to recognize fraud detection, including ID. Somehow, artificial intelligence will solve the problems of finding fraudsters. It'll solve the problems of giving safety ratings. That we guys are just in the last century, but I'm with you, Chuck. I think that the real issue is if you stop and look where they are, and you guys have some personal experience with it, you can see for your case, Rico, the other day they got spammed, and you got an invitation from the FMCSA to turn over all your private information,
Right.
thinking that it was them, and the cover page had some spoofter's number on it.
Right. But the thing about it is, I think
they had gotten it straight, and they put out.
I don't see how. I don't understand how they figure artificial intelligence is going to help solve this problem, because I think artificial intelligence is a catalyst behind this problem becoming so big, because
100%.
people are utilizing the artificial intelligence in order to pull off some of this fraud.
That's exactly what's going on.
Look, guys, I'm glad I got you on the steering committee, because you see it exactly like I do. In Chuck's and Rico's situation, you would think that, impersonating a government official is a major fraud. I mean, you send out something that says you're the IRS and you aren't. There's a real
It should be
hassle to this department, and said, "Hey, look, Bubba, they're spamming us. Run down this fake postal address and figure out who it is, and let's make an example of them." I haven't seen that happen.
No.
And they are getting into the FMCSA and pulling out information now. Now, I guess somehow they think this new system is going to be more proof harder to get into, but I don't see how that is. For example, I've got a client out in California who called me, and he said, "Hank, I've had a load stolen out here." He said, some guy with the last name, Sikhish name, ended up getting a hold of it. He parked it in a warehouse. It was stolen out of the warehouse. It's worth $280,000, and he said, I can't get anybody interested in doing anything about it. He said the funny thing about it is this last name, Padender or something another Singh, is the same guy that it's kind of like John Smith, I guess, in that ethnicity. But Freightwaves pointed out that there were, I think, 280 Singhs all in the same office building next to the port. So, I mean, here you got a notified group that had been identified and had been singled out. And, the world is just full of I don't mean to hit on this ethnicity. There are probably a lot of good guys there, but somebody should have looked into the fact that the 208, 300, all with the same business address.
Right.
And so now my client's trying to do his best to try to find somebody in the FBI who'll take it on. Good luck.
Yeah, that's wild.
Well, that's just daily fodder. But
maybe it's going to be the local police forces, guys, that are going to, just like any other fraud.
No,
See, I don't think I wouldn't.
That'll never happen.
I wouldn't think the locals would even have nowhere near the resources for that. This has got to be a federal. This has definitely got to be something that comes down from a federal standpoint.
Yes, it's federal jurisdiction, and the people move across state lines so fast. Nobody wants to do it. The local prosecutor's concerned about dead people in the street and people overdosing, and he's got no interest in trying to take his limited budget and chase fraud. The only thing that I see that will work is to create a special prosecutor and a special team within the Department of Justice that FMCSA and those people will have to work to, who can pick out their cases and incarcerate.
How is the insurance company looking at this, Hank? Because I have to imagine that they got to be screaming bloody murder.
There are some insurance underwriters who are, who've got a product to sell, but most of the policies exclude theft. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get a policy that covers you as a carrier or as a broker, theft, you're probably going to get a $40,000 or $50,000 premium if you can get it, and then you may very well find out you've got a denial. It's just not a real market for it because insurance companies are in it to making money, and they're not buying what you buy is what you get. So yes, there are some insurance companies that are concerned about it. The old standard is the insurance companies were supporters of cargo cats and the day in which hard collar crimes knock the truck driver upside the head and steal the load. Now you've got this larceny by fraud, and it's a little bit more sophisticated, but it's not a street gang with stuff. They've already figured out where that stuff's going to be stolen, if that's the game. But then if it's the non-personal injury type of thing, it's amazing how tolerant our government is for white-collar crime. And you guys know that this really isn't white-collar crime. You're not doing your job if you haven't been gotten a call from somebody that says, just give me my money, you know where I live. I mean, there's a lot of intimidation that goes on behind that.
Yeah.
And, I think that ought to really attract. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. The constituent comes in and turns over a picture of his family with a note from a crook that says, "You've got a nice family. I don't think they want to know how you're treating me." I'll get up out of my chair and find something to help the guy out.
Agree.
Yeah.
I get issue, but from an enforcement or something, because it's real problem. It's kind of.
Well, I guess what all I'm saying is we're going to have all hands on deck And if half the people at the seminar says, well, pay me some money, I can, I got a better answer. You know, I think it's a government job.
Oh,
And I think these people just, we can make it better. I mean, you know, I've got a lot of clients who put very simple procedures in, like insisting that the bill of lading be signed, like matching the guy's name up with the name on the side of the door. And maybe this new electronic recognition will save some of it. But you know, when the guy who picks the load up takes it out of his possession and gives it to somebody else or reconsigns it, you know, thus begins the long investigating trail that you know, takes somebody with some experience.
you know, it starts at the shipping door when the shipper doesn't take down, like if the shipper doesn't go outside and check to make sure the carrier that shows up is the carrier that's supposed to show up. And you know, and as I've said on this show before, I've been to plenty of shippers where they ask for a driver's license and things like that. And there's some now that are taking videos, they're taking photographs of the driver, everything else. But
Well, I think that's one thing that is going to be built in to the new system, that everybody is going to be facial recognition. I mean, I'm a little. I was talking with my data hunter today, and he's all on board with it. And I said, well, you know, I'm a little concerned because you know, every teenage boy can either get a driver's license that says he's 21, or can mark up a girl to make her look like a whore. So I mean, I'm just, you know, it just seems to me as though the technology can't be all that good when you know, you're stopped in a construction site and they've got to have a class #1 facial reader.
yeah,
But you know, there's going to be a lot of cost in that.
well, there's a lot of cost in this fraud. It's costing millions and millions of dollars, and the money has to come. You know, we have to pay for it somehow. And you know, I just had an idea. Maybe you know how we have the heavy truck tax.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy truck tax. Maybe we sock on an extra $100 a year, and that goes towards going after these fraudsters.
I think you've got a good idea, because one of the first things to do is the government's going to tell you they don't have any money, but meanwhile they're giving it away to illegal immigrants. But you know, it's going to have to be halfway self-funding, and I think that the industry, knowing what it knows, would certainly help underwrite the special task force with a fund. Now, guys, you know, the other thing I want you all to consider, because we're Confederates in this thing, is how do we start a library that really reflects how bad it is? The FMCSA and its hotline doesn't have it. I mean, we know by the size of some of the huge $7 and $8 million heists that it really hits the economy hard. And we know that the bait and switch thing can hit 178 small carriers inside of 9 weeks. So, you know, we need to be able to have bank connect some of these dots. Because when you get down to it, a lot of times the mastermind may be a factor. He may be an insurance company. It's not always just a question of figure out who owns the company. That guy just may be a front, or it can be an identity theft. This is really going to take, you know, a special task force, and how how we get enough motivation in this oh let somebody else do it world to make it happen. It's going to take some organization.
I apologize, Hank. Can you hear me? Or we just left you hanging by yourself?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know what in the world is going on exactly. I'm trying to figure it out, but I missed your commentary on the other portion as far as the task force. I'm just bewildered as to why this is not getting the attention that it deserves from our, if we're such a regulated industry.
Well, what happened is, I look back on some of my books and things. This kind of fraud got started around 2010, so it's nothing new. It was a product of the spot market and the fact that large numbers of people were having to make decisions about hauling loads from strangers in the spot market, and it was a fertile field for fraud. And it just grew and it grew, and there was nobody doing a daggone thing about it. And most of the large companies that have been seriously defrauded have reluctantly accepted it as a cost of doing business, I guess. I don't know anybody who wouldn't like to correct it, but the guy it quickly puts out of business is a small man.
Right, and that's the thing that we're battling against, is that, like you said, it kind of takes away the competitiveness. And also, if you're, like I said, if you run into a scenario like I did today, where you're trying to book a load with somebody and they're saying that they're not onboarding any new carriers or anything like that, and if you get into an area where it's a really tight market, and they may be the only person that may have loads available, man, that could put you in quite of a pickle, I could imagine.
Yeah, and Rico, you're a leader in terms of representing small businessmen, owner operators, those type of folks. They're going to be the least familiar with the administrative process, the least familiar with the idea of take some encouragement to get them to go Saturday to see what's your Senator Warnock?
Warnock.
Warnock. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we can get a gang of 4 or 5 people to go see Warnock. That'll, go from the large to the big, and everybody will have a story to tell. And it's not a. It shouldn't be a divisive issue. I mean,
No, it really should.
Together.
It really should. This affects everybody. What, like you said, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. It really doesn't matter at all as far as a party line is concerned. This is something that is definitely much bigger, that affects everybody involved in the industry.
Well, what we got to think about is how we can mobilize people who see it that way to bring the important things to the table. I mean, one of the issues, I'll just run right at both of you guys, because both of you are in refrigerated, okay? Just different extent. Chuck, I guess half of your traditional service is in refrigerated?
No, it's quite a bit, and I don't know what the exact numbers are because I sold the company 2 years ago. But at that point, it was probably 35 to 40% refrigerated.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where
let me give you an example. The existing regulations are only written to apply to regulated commodities.
Right.
Okay. So theft and all that. Listen, they're just as happy. They're just as happy to defend strawberries as they are something else. Uh, everybody that's uh, uh, everybody that's hauling produce is probably as big a user of the call boards as anybody else. So when you start thinking about reform, isn't it a little stupid to say, well, we're going to give DOT numbers to everybody out there, but half of those everybody is not going to be even licensed to haul regulated commodities.
Right.
So now here you sit, and Chuck, you've been through it. You got scammed by some guy you thought was a major produce broker.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is, if we're going to try to clean up fraud in the industry, you can't just say, well, we're stuck with a decision that was made 40 years ago that said that bananas were regulated, but apples aren't.
Yeah.
Or that says, well, gee, if you got a prior subsequent movement by air, the FMCSA can't help you. But if you got substituted motor for air, it's fair game. When we start talking about dealing with fraud and them going out and giving everybody a DOT number,
Yeah.
whether or not they're going to comply with the law. I mean, to me, it's silly that they're talking about reinventing all of this. And in a press release they put out yesterday, they said there'd be 700,000 carriers involved. And they made very clear to emphasize that their regulatory powers did not extend to exempt goods. Now, that was the first time they clarified that, because we had been asking them when they said they go give everybody a DOT number. We were saying, hey, that's great. They're all going to take the same application. Over on the expedited world, there's a requirement that if you run a van or a sprinter, you got to have $300,000 worth of auto liability. They don't even record. If you're a final mile carrier, you may not have any insurance. You have nothing on your door, and the guy that hires you doesn't know whether or not you even have State Farm. So I'm just saying,
ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the technical issues for tonight, but I do want to say this: if you guys have questions or comments, we are live, as you can tell, due to the technical difficulties. If you want to put them in the chat, and we'll see them, and we'll try to make sure we wrap those comments and questions into the show. But I just wanted to kind of quick programming note. We got a few minutes.
Well, the other thing I'd love to talk to you guys about is, after the election, people are going to need to get motivated about these things and do more than retransport topics. Maybe there's a role for us to get some topics together and use rates and lanes, or use some access to do some education for folks. It's amazing how many chat rooms there are of disgruntled owner operators that people are leading me to, that really haven't gotten any real press. They're
because they're chat rooms, Hank. That's why, and they're not.
They do publish lists. Let me give you an example. There is a broker who will go nameless, but he's in Colorado, and he just loves to file carrier 411 reports, complaining about carriers who dropped off of loads. And he calls them every kind of scumbag he can. Well, when you drill down, what happens is he doesn't put any detention in the contract, and all of its loads you got to go and wait at the end of the line. So carriers are typically dropping out. Well, carrier 411 won't record that, okay? But it's out there. It's out there, and if you go to Google complaints or whatever, you'll see like 70 complaints, all by owner operators, all for the same thing. Yeah, for carrier 411. Hey, you think they're going to footnote that?
Yeah.
It has reported all these instances. So, I mean, it's kind of like, well, where's the rest of the story? And I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think the rest of the story is getting made. Particularly, it seems like I'm having a lot of problems with good clients getting nasty reports. And getting no responsiveness out of the reporting service.
Yeah, that's the problem with some of these things, where people can ruin somebody's reputation and there's no responsibility.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I ran into an attorney who says that he's making a living taking on some of those call boards when they tell a victim, and you got 24 hours, we're not going to listen to you, and all that kind of stuff. Years ago, when this first became a problem in the late 80s, there was an outfit called CompuNet Credit Services. And I met they were decent people, and I met them, and they said, "Hey, look, you just call acted against it, and you seem to know what you're doing about it. So if somebody files a complaint and the broker files an answer, you just arbitrate it. So we can say, well, we had a third party neutral did it. And so I did it for years, and it was really kind of interesting. Some of the brokers became really good friends. One of them was Alan Lund.
Great company.
His dad, and I said, "What's that? What's that, Alan?" And he says, "Well, my payment terms are 15 days after I get the billing." And he said, all these guys ride around their truck for 2 weeks and send it to me. And by the time I get it, they're yelling I haven't paid them on time. But, I had to take that into consideration and handle it. But, I think the way some of these people act, it's just kind of the broker's always right, or carrier's always right.
Yeah, people have to get on the same page, because we're all in this for the same reason.
Yeah, and it's getting to the point where it's more and more difficult to have just a genuine conversation with people that are the decision makers, so to speak. Sometimes it's so difficult to actually get to the right person on the telephone line. It's almost when you finally do get to the right person and you're able to get some action done, it's so relieving, but it's a battle in the whole process to even get to that person a lot of times.
Well, because people hide behind voicemail and email, and in general, they just do. People don't have conversations. And, I remember that, when all my working years, I liked conversations. When there was a problem, you call the person back and you get things solved. Running away from a problem or just deleting the call doesn't help.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, in the old days, there were 40 carriers in Tennessee, and they peddled the whole state. You had maybe 2 in Hohenwald, but no more than that. And all these guys were fierce competitors, but they were good friends. And, if there was a cheat in a bunch, everybody knew it. And trucking was kind of like that. But it's gotten so much into procurement law is what I think it is. It's left up to the lawyer to drive the most stringent case law he can down on the port carrier. I was looking at one here tonight for a client. He sent it to me, and it's for one of the largest retailers in the country, and he said, "Tell me what you think about this indemnity program." And the indemnity language basically said that it had a rising out of language. It says if our customers, our employees, an invitee is injured or has a claim in any way arising out of your act or your presence on our lot, you will fully indemnify us. Now, you can't get money for that. But what's obviously going to happen is this very big retailer who's got property insurance hasn't given up the right of subrogation, which means that if his big company pays $1 million claim and somehow your truck was in the backyard, some enterprising lawyer will take that subro claim and sue the hell out of it. And, I'm sorry, guys, that's just unconscionable.
Let me ask you a question on this. So what happens? You've got a truck driver that he's an owner operator. He's backing into a big retailer's facility, and God forbid, touch wood, he runs over one of the employees in the parking lot backing up, and he has signed this agreement. So all of a sudden, that person's life is worth, say it's $3 million, but he's only got $1 million worth of insurance, and it's a guy with one truck. What happens then?
Well, it's really pretty simple. As a matter of ordinary jurisprudence, if you are the driver of the truck and you run over somebody, you're going to have to convince the jury that you were negligent. And if you convince the jury that you're negligent, then chances are not only is the driver going to be personally liable, but the carrier who hired him. The carrier's the one that's got at least $1 million. All right, but the case you gave me is different legally than this indemnity, because under the common law in most states, if you run over somebody, absent them having a defense of contributory negligence, you're going to buy them. So, I don't have a problem at all telling somebody, look, you tell them, I'll accept legal responsibility for my driver's act or omissions. I got $1 million worth of BI and PD insurance.
Right.
And beyond that, you're on your own, and there's no way that I can indemnify you for all your acts and omissions. Now, the situation you just gave me, that guy on the dock had workman's comp, probably, okay? So whatever his life is worth, his workman's comp guy will pay it. But you'll find that whoever the workman's comp guy is will then take the sub-road rights and come after him. And if he doesn't, there's a good chance that the family will take the $1 million and try to sue somebody too. So it's for that reason that, I have to tell a small carrier, if you go out and get $5 million worth of insurance, you just set the insurance demand by the plaintiff.
Right.
The reason for that is if an insurance company doesn't ultimately tender policy limits, they're liable for any excess burden. So, for that reason, a lot of them settle for $5 million aren't worth it. Insurance company gets cold feet.
Yeah, good point. It's just such a tangled mess right now.
And I really, Hank, I'm gonna put you on the spot for a second because I'm looking at the time and I don't want to hold you any longer, but I want to try to get you back sooner than later because we had so many technical difficulties tonight, and I think that this conversation, I don't even think we've even put a dent in it or even scratched the surface, so to speak. And I think that we need that. This deserves a little bit more of a more in-depth and a better broadcast than what we were able to produce today. So
let's cut some time. Just get on a three-way and talk because we might want to give a little more continuity. Even to the extent of publishing a PowerPoint and trying to cover a topic that you know uh, could maybe attract some more folks. Particularly if I think both of you guys get our monthly update,
Yes.
yeah.
and you know, it would suit me fine if y'all wanted to say, "Hey, get it, read it, figure out which of those topics seem to be current, and us rehearse what the questions are, and
Well, this is I
a little
think
more
the
organized."
hottest one, and then I think the next hottest one is probably going to be, God forbid, what happens if the Dems win, and AB5 really comes to life throughout the country.
So
Well, that is a really, really tough one because we've down here got a Department of Labor that we've done all we can to keep them from appointing union organizers as the leader of the Department of Labor. The way they've got it stacked, the FMCSA is holding listening sessions, try to initiate the ability for an owner operator to buy a truck buyer through a company. So it's really tough there, and that's where it's going to be a court battle, and that's really the one in which those 700,000 independent businessmen, largely guys who like the idea of parking their truck in their front yard, going out for a week and being home for the son's game. I mean, that's a lifestyle.
Yes.
And we've gotten to the point that there's so many folks that hi ho, it's off to work they go. It's 9 to 5. What a way to make a living! That are looking for that.
Yep.
People that are looking to say, I'd rather work by the job and set my own hours, have the chance to make some profit.
Yep.
And you can't help but listen to the election down here and be disarmed by the fact that it's just a parade of unions. So I don't know. I just think the owner operator model is a small business choice.
Yeah, it's the backbone of America and Canada.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, buddy, now you got a rail strike going. What's that going to do for you?
Well, I think it's eased up a little bit, and now it's in the hands of the courts. They're appealing it. It's a dog's breakfast. This is an essential service.
Oh, absolutely.
We have 2 railways in this entire country, and our oil moves by rail.
That pretty well counts for it. Well, I'll tell you, your rail leaders are going to teach our guys down here a thing or two.
Yeah.
I mean, they're far more aggressive than some of our stodgy old railroads.
Well, yeah, these guys have been fighting amongst themselves, and it's just a dog's breakfast. It should not have ever happened. And we've got a lame duck government on top of it.
Yeah,
it's a lame duck.
Well, Hank, we're going to be in contact sooner than later. Like
Yes.
I said, and we're definitely going to follow up. I'm not at my home office tonight, so I can't hold up my book for Hank. But I want to remind everybody about Hank's book, Rules of the Road. You can go if you're interested in grabbing a copy. You can go to Hank's website, www.transportationlaw.net. There are a ton of resources also on Hank's website.
I'm coming to Grandfather's Day in Watkinsville. I'm coming to Grandfather's Day in Watkinsville in a couple of weeks, so we might get a chance to get together.
Okay.
One.
Okay. So, but that being said, that's where you can find the rules of the road. That's where you can find Hank's book. So definitely, I recommend. I call it the Bible of the transportation industry. It helps kind of demystify and makes sense of all of the legal gobbledygook that you see in some of these contracts. Hank does an excellent job of putting that in the plain English where you can understand it and make sense of it. And with that being said, I'm gonna let Chuck let the good folks know how they can get a hold of you, and we'll get ready to kind of put a bow on this thing for the night.
Okay. Yes, if any of our listeners need me for anything, please reach out to me on my email, chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on it, and I promise I'll call you back right away. And with that, I'll let you back her in a hole for another week. Hank, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Rico and me for joining us tonight. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll try to get that improved.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
All right,
we want to thank you guys.
I've enjoyed it. Take care.
All right. Take it easy, Hank.
Take care.
I want to thank you guys, the listeners, for bearing with us as well. Definitely appreciate you guys sticking through the technical issues that we had. We're going to try to work on getting that. Sometimes when we're out mobile and I'm actually out making a delivery as we speak, is why you see me shaking in the background. But I guess I'm not in the area with the greatest of signals. But with that being said, we'll try to work on making sure that we got this block of time blocked off so that we can try to be produce a better product for you guys out there. So with that being said, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening anyway, and for hanging in there with us. We want you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and God willing, we'll talk at the same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch on the flip flop. God bless.